In today's episode, Dennis asks, how do you think AI will be applied to better understand consumer sentiments? Sentiment analysis is a field where it's part of machine learning. It's part of natural language processing, and it is it has changed and improved substantially in the last year. We have seen some major leaps forward in machine learning when it comes to being able to do more with language, to generate language, to be able to recreate very human-like language. Our technology has vastly improved. Just as a bit of history, machine learning and natural language processing used to be very primitive. The most common methodology used back in the old days, like 2 years ago, was like bag of words, where you would have certain words and those words would have sentiments attached to them. There's some very famous natural language processing libraries that did this, where you would have words like hate versus love. And that approach was okay-ish, but it really did a poor job of understanding any kind of context. You could say things like, I love to club baby seals, right? That would be a positive sentiment, but we know it from a human perspective, that's a pretty awful negative kind of thing. More has changed on that front. Bag of words, it's still used by a lot of software, particularly in the marketing space, but it is largely deprecated by people who are doing natural language processing work. More complex stuff is stuff like vectorization, where you have technology that understands not only the word but the context around it, the mathematical co-occurrences of words. You could say, you would be able to see things like I don't love or I don't hate, and have them be treated as contiguous entities rather than separate, discrete words. And with vectorization, that then opens up the path to really complex language models using deep learning methods, where machines understand and process at the word level, at the phrase level, at the sentence level, paragraph level, and ultimately the document level, understanding how the relationships between these different entities change and grow over time. And that's where natural language processing today is doing a fantastic job. By having those multiple levels of understanding, we can get very close to truly understanding the context of what somebody writes in like a consumer review, or what they say in a video, or what they said in an email, or what someone noted in a CRM. That natural language processing has really advanced, and there are some newer tools, even newer tools today, things like active learning, that are helping our models get better much faster, because instead of writing a model and then just being done with it, the machines now are flagging things where they say, this is a low probability, a low confidence entry here, and it will raise its hand and say, human, help me interpret this. You score this one. You score this exception to most of the rules I've come up with, and then it'll reintegrate our feedback and use that to keep training and improving its model. So active learning really helping change and improve the game for natural language processing. Which leads you to the logical question, why are we not seeing this progress in marketing tools? Why is it that so many marketing tools are still stuck in 2005 or 2010 when it comes to a lot of these techniques? Well, the answer is cost. And there's a couple of different dimensions of cost. One is the cost to include techniques like this in your software. You need someone who knows how to write this code, and that's a big part. But a bigger part, and a part that isn't talked about a lot, is compute cost. Doing deep learning requires big, heavy hardware, like GPUs, to process quickly. And that the cost of that is starting to come down, but it is still fairly expensive to run that type of compute compared to a bag of words approach, which is a very cheap form of compute. Which means that if you are a software vendor that is making SaaS-based software, which is the majority of marketing tools, software as a service, there's nothing you download, there's nothing you install, you just go to a website and you put in your credentials and it does the thing. In an environment like that, companies have a mandate to keep compute as cheap as possible so that it scales to as many users as possible. If you have very expensive compute techniques, you can get a slow application very, very soon, sooner than you expect. And so those two things, lack of knowledge and the scalability, are really prohibiting the inclusion of these techniques in major mainstream marketing tools. Now, I think over time that will change as compute costs continue to drop year after year. And then it's just the lack of knowledge. And that, I think, will eventually be overcome by startups disrupting spaces and then being bought by the big players and having the startup technology integrated into the big players' tools and techniques. Now, you can get a jump on this by building your own software, by building your own tools. Because what is computationally expensive for a software company to deploy to millions of users is computationally very cheap for you or me to run on a laptop, right? If you have a modern laptop and you have your own natural language processing code, is it a big deal for you to run a piece of software that does a natural language assessment in 10 or 15 minutes? No, you do that, your computer gets warm, the fans run a little bit, and you go out, maybe get a cup of coffee or something, come back, and it's done. That's not a big deal to us. That's a huge deal. That would be a business-ending problem for a software company. But for you and me, because we are effectively distributing the problem across many computers, I do my version on my computer, you do your version on your computer, it's not a big deal. So if you want to get a jump on competitors, if you want to get a jump on software companies waiting for them to catch up, just close that knowledge gap by hiring, by creating, by buying the software to run in-house on your machines to do this kind of processing. And then you'll have your answers way before anybody else. So give that some thought. Give that some thought. This is a good question, Dennis. How do we apply this technique? It's pretty obvious. Once you understand the consumer sentiment, you can use that information to change what you're doing that's making people unhappy and to do more of the things that make people happy. That's the use case for consumer sentiment. The hard part is getting accurate sentiment. But good question. As always, please leave your comments in the comments box below. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. I'll talk to you soon. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.